This is the Wrestling Old Head. You have entered the portal of pro wrestling.
What the world is watching.
A little something outside of the box for the Wrestling Old Head is talking about NXT. NXT, for a while, you could have lumped it in with Ohio Valley Wrestling, Florida Championship Wrestling, and pre-Black and Gold NXT. But over the last couple of months, some would even say a year, NXT has transformed into its own brand. NXT started off as the NCAA to the WWE's NBA. But fairly recently, it's got its own style in a sense. And incorporating TNA and seasoned wrestlers like Shawn Spears have helped elevate the younger wrestlers who are on the cusp of leveling up. Usually when the WWE gets a hold of the NXT graduates, they have this essence of their character, but sometimes, for sake of time and other things, I'm sure, they are left missing some key components as to why they stood out or even got over. So it's nice to see what certain wrestlers are capable of in a system where they are the main players before they get called up to be supporting casts on the main roster. Some wrestlers in NXT to look out for, in my opinion, you got the Stephanie Vicure, the Julia, Jordan Grace, Obafemi, Wesley, Fraxium, the tag team champions, Trick Williams, Ricky Saints, aka Ricky Starks, Javon Evans, and Saquon Shagor. Shagor and Evans, better known as Lucky Ali and Jay Malachi for those that follow Deadlock Pro Wrestling, they have all the tools. And it's really fun watching them evolve in this system. Because when I would watch Deadlock Pro Wrestling, just because I would listen to their podcast a lot, love them doing the retro reviews of Nitro and Raw, I had no idea they had their own company. And then when I started to dig and find their shows, there was this kind of like rebellious company that was similar to ECW. They had this thing about them that just drew me in, from their television show that they had on YouTube to their bigger events. They incorporated this feeling of like, I'm involved in something that is exciting and I should let other people know what this is. And two of the guys that stood out the most were Jay Malachi and Lucky Ali. And they were on the top of the card usually for DPW, aside from guys like Calvin Tankman, who was a guy that you should really look out for, and a bigger guy named Bojack as well. Look out for those guys, man. Those guys are superstars in the making too. And it's only a matter of time before Calvin Tankman finds his way into AEW or WWE. I mean, just a matter of time. He's a powerhouse. But Lucky Ali, I remember watching him as this heel, and he was the top heel in DPW for a while. The way that he cut promos, and even the way that he worked matches. I felt like he studied Rick Rude a ton. He had the same mannerisms, and his tights were similar. He had these long tights that were similar to Rick Rude. I just felt like he did a lot of homework on Rick Rude. And I had said for a while, like, I wondered why nobody was using the hanging snap neck breaker that Rick Rude would use back in his heyday. Nobody took that move on as a finishing maneuver. And it was great because you got the wind up. When you're a heel and you're trying to wind up and twist the face around, like the crowd is going to get behind the face, hoping that he doesn't fall to this neck breaker. And then even as a face, you're rallying to get behind Rick Rude so that he can hit that Rude Awakening and the crowd can go crazy, because that might be it. That might be his opportunity to win the match. It's a great move to invoke an emotion from the crowd, to get the crowd behind you or your opponent. And I was wondering why nobody had ever used that move after Rick Rude left. I mean, to a success that Rick Rude had, I guess I should say, as a finishing maneuver. So then I see Lucky Ali, and he's working these matches, and he's got that. He's got the way that he sells, the way that he works. It's a star making... I'm watching a star in DPW just evolve and grow. So I knew it was only a matter of time before he ended up in NXT. Jay Malachi, the way that he flew into the ring, the way that he did his moves, it was like he was a cloud. It was amazing to see him work. It was almost effortless, and you could tell there was a lot of work that went into it, but the way that he moved, it was just like it didn't even seem real. The one thing about Jay Malachi at the time, before he became Javon Evans in NXT, was just his size, man. It was like watching Steph Curry, the NBA player for the Golden State Warriors, when he was playing basketball in college. He had all the moves, and it was great to see him play, but we wondered how it would transfer in the NBA because he just didn't have the size. Fast forward now, Javon Evans is starting to get that size, and it's not at the loss of his speed or his agility. So it's really nice to see them kind of grow in NXT. Jay Malachi, a.k.a. Javon Evans, is a stone's throw away, in my opinion, from being the NXT champion. Saquon Shigor, I believe that's how you say his name, is in a new stable called Darkstate. And that's what we're here to talk about, Darkstate. This stable, when it first came out, a lot of people were like, oh, this reminds me of Retribution. And no stable wants to be reminded or have the fans remind them of that stable, Retribution. In theory, it could have been a really, really good stable. It just fell flat. It was not executed well at all. So here comes this stable that comes out through the crowd like the Shield, that kind of reminds everybody of the Core or Retribution, and there were just groans and eye rolls and until they started talking. And the one that stood out the most was Shigor. He had a knee injury, I believe, some kind of a leg injury that kept him out for a while. I believe a little over a year when he first came into NXT. And he was working his way up through the system at the time. This was prior to WWE Evolve showing up now and LFG showing up now. You worked your way up through a show called Level Up, which is no longer around. And now we're getting a chance to see him cut promos in the Darkstate. And he sticks out like a sore thumb. He's got the charisma. He's believable. He can cut a promo. And that was something that was a strength for him in Deadlock Pro Wrestling. He could cut a promo better than a lot of guys that I'd seen that were already on primetime television, and I'm not kidding. So for him to be on the forefront, to lead this stable through NXT, at least especially cutting promos, was a great idea. And around him are these mountains of men, these athletes, Dion Lennox, Cutler James, Osiris Griffin. These guys are monsters. So to surround somebody like Shigor with these guys, it makes them more intimidating and more believable. And you got the mouthpiece and also the workhorse. Most stables, their success is predicated on having the pieces to get them to the top of the mountain. You got to have the powerhouse. You got to have a tag team. And you got to have the workhorse, charismatic leader. And that's what this stable is showing me in Darkstate. Or are we seeing the leader? Because for those that have not been watching NXT, Trick Williams, former NXT champion, has been having a change in personality as of late since he lost his NXT championship to Obafemi, who is this powerhouse guy that has gotten praise and passing of the torch energy from guys like The Undertaker and even Shawn Michaels. He has been on the top in NXT, and Trick Williams has seen a change in attitude, a change in heart since watching Obafemi take the reins. Javon Evans has been trying to befriend Trick Williams, and Trick Williams has been shunning him. Now, I've already expressed and explained the history there between Javon Evans and Saquon Shigor. They have a history in DPW. Now, their history was usually in one-on-one matches, but who's to say that Javon Evans won't be revealed as the leader of Darkstate, a group of rebels that are coming in and that are causing chaos. I don't know if I see that for Javon Evans and his character, but it would be a nice change of pace for Javon Evans. I am starting to believe that maybe we see Trick Williams head up the stable, and then that can send him in to the WWE. Because Trick Williams, for a while he was this charismatic, kind of like very flamboyant character that really, really had the charisma of The Rock. Very similar energy there. But now we're seeing a more grittier, a more angsty Trick Williams. So because of that, it would make a whole lot of sense to put Trick Williams with the Darkstate. I can see it. One thing that I can't see is Obafemi being the leader of this group, because Obafemi is such a powerhouse that I really don't see him needing to be surrounded by henchmen in his title reign. So to me, it would come down to Trick Williams or Javon Evans. Now, for a while, thinking outside of the box, I thought it would have been cool to have Ricky Saints head up this stable. But the way that Saquon Shigor and Ricky Saints cut promos, I think those two would cancel each other out. Trick Williams is a decent promo, but to have a mouthpiece like Shigor on his side is only going to help him going forward. So that's why I feel like Trick Williams will reveal himself to be the leader of this new stable, the Darkstate, and they would run roughshod over NXT and eventually start making their appearance and presence known in the WWE as soon as the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. I believe they could pull that trigger, or they could wait until the night after SummerSlam. The first 2 nights SummerSlam, by the way. So for those of you that have not been watching NXT, should I start talking more about NXT? What do you think about NXT and how it's changed lately since going to network television and really establishing itself as its own brand outside of just a developmental program? You guys let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think of the stable, the Darkstate? Have you been familiar with Lucky Ali and Jay Malachi since before joining the WWE? All of that and much more, you guys. Let me know in the comments. Thumbs up on the way out. Until next time, this has been the Wrestling Old Head. You have entered the portal of pro wrestling. Stay tuned for more.